Hello, lovelies! As you can see, I'm very pregnant because, as you know, it's month 8 of my pregnancy story. As you know, I make these videos at the end of the month, so technically right now I am 9 months and like 2 weeks. But let's just go ahead and talk about month 8. As I talked about last time, I wanted to talk about all the practical things you have to get ready for. It's no longer conceptual. It's all how do we do this practically? And the first thing really for me was just let's review all these videos that we've gone through. Let's go through our labor and birth videos. Let's review our birth positions. Let's review our birth plan. Let's visit our hospital bag. Let's make sure we have everything we need so whenever the day comes, we're ready to go. The biggest difference, the biggest development is that my doctor actually offered that I get an induction because my husband is moving so far away, or he's living so far away. I think it was just more of if I go into labor, they wanted to find an easier way for me to get there to the hospital. Even though I had other routes, I had 2 taxi services, which I have written on my refrigerator. One's by city and one's a company. I don't want to take the bus, obviously. Shoot, I've befriended a convenience store owner. She's so sweet. She's really interested in the baby, obviously, and she was like, so you mean tell me that no one's gonna take you to the hospital? She's like, well, screw a taxi, you better come here and I'll drive you to the clinic. I was like, that won't be necessary, but thank you for the gesture. Super sweet. But other than the transportation, I think that there was a few underlining reasons health-wise that the doctor was thinking about. At the time, I was picking up a lot of weight, and the baby wasn't gaining as much weight anymore, so it was just me. And I think that they were concerned about any difficulties that would happen with me being overweight when it comes time for the delivery. The other thing was that he's jumping like a little Mexican jumping bean right now. The other thing is something more recent was that my blood pressure has gone up, which of course is a sign of preeclampsia, which is a sign of preeclampsia. I'm butchering everything today. With my high blood pressure and sudden weight gain, they're concerned that I might develop preeclampsia. It's a dangerous condition, but I think honestly it's mild because the doctor hasn't really given me a full diagnosis of it. My brain is in a hot scramble right now. I'm trying to collect all my thoughts and make it all in a nice even and streamless timeline, but I'm gonna have a lot of tangents. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize now. The baby brain does not help. Let's talk about my pregnancy photo shoot, right? That's fun. As you know, it's spring. I'm having a spring baby, and I went to go view plum blossoms. This is not sakura, the cherry blossoms. This is the plum blossoms, and they're smaller buds. They're more round and they're more vibrant with the pinks and the whites. And in our local area, we have a big area for the plum blossoms. So we went, and I dressed up in all pink, and we took all these cute photos of me now that I have a full I'm very pregnant. So that was my maternity shoot, of course, done by my husband. When it comes to actually doing my birth plan, I've been trying really to just exercise. been trying to just practice walking and like getting these joints to move, which is kind of difficult, honestly. But it's gotten better. Now that the baby has finally dropped, he's so deep into my pelvis, like all of this is just his like bum and legs and arms. The doctor really can't even get a good picture of his face, because he's obscured by my pelvic bone. But it makes it easier for me to talk, for me to like walk. Like I don't have to like strain to get up as much as I used to. He feels lighter. My husband akin this to like how you carry a hiking backpack. Depending on how you set the weight on your back can make it more difficult or easier. So it's basically what's going on with the baby is that I'm carrying him differently, so it makes it easier to do normal things. I've got a few clips of me just walking around my neighborhood, looking very pregnant. Not cute, honestly. I wish I had like this whole like I'm cute all the time, but like honestly I feel like I'm a bum, and I've got like this body dysmorphia. Like I look at myself in the mirror whenever I'm about to take a shower and I'm like, ooh, who is that? Like who is that? That's not my body. Other than just like walking around my neighborhood, I've also been like just choosing activities that just would require a lot more walking. Like let's go to the mall, let's walk around and see the sakura, let's go, like I had to go do my visa, so I had to like walk and take the train and stuff. Like I didn't want to do these things, but I knew that in the long run that it would be more beneficial. And sure enough, like after all the aches and pains, like I do feel like I've built some form of strength around my pelvis and like my core, I guess you could say too. Switching topics a little bit, I do want to talk about the fact that it is spring, and with spring comes allergies. We had, of course, the big hay fever cloud because all the trees are blooming and all the cedars blooming, and everyone's allergic to it, obviously. My husband got it first. His allergies were really bad and he developed a cold. Now the problem is as late in the pregnancy that I am, I'm, immune compromised. So sure enough, I developed a cold. And you can hear it in my throat. I'm still dealing with the like irritation in my throat. I still have a cough, and I still have like some drainage. Not only did I have to recover from the cold, we also had to like clear the whole house from like allergens, so we wouldn't like have another like episode again. So that included like dusting everything, vacuuming everything, clearing out things that would collect dust, which is a good, I think, because is also setting up for the baby in his environment. So I think that that's all good to go. Being sick while being pregnant was absolutely awful. It felt like I had the flu. I did go to a doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me with a common cold, so it wasn't the flu. But like I had like the aches and pains, I had the diarrhea, I was fatigued, the cough, the sneezes, the runny nose. It was just all so awful. Like your normal sickness, and then like, times 3. And you can't take any decongestants because you're pregnant, because they're dangerous to you and the baby. So it was just like this other, it was no fun at all. At the same time that I've been like going back and reviewing all of my videos and my information and like rereading like paragraphs of information and stuff, I've also been making sure that I look up for like emergency things, like what happens if I have to like have like a spontaneous labor or something crazy like that, or like what happens if I have to have like a major I have to have an emergency C-section. Just like informing myself about like what could happen. Apparently There's a term called birth trauma, which is very common whenever women have such an awful experience with birth, such a negative experience that they are literally traumatized, and most likely won't have another child, or felt like regret from having a child, or like feeling anger towards the child because the child almost took their life. And there's many reasons why you could have this trauma, but one of the most common ways is actually from your birth plan changing in a way that you didn't anticipate, and that you, in this moment of heightened like adrenaline and life and flight, that like it causes this form of trauma. For example, having to do like an emergency C-section, right? So, and one of the best ways to reduce your chances for developing birth trauma is actually to just be more accepting of things that could happen, and understanding that even though you have a birth plan, that things change according to the time, like what could happen, right? Of course, you can have trauma for things like, your baby's delivered and your baby's not breathing, and of course that's disturbing as well. But like that's things that you have to accept. You have to understand, accept it, and then let it go. You have to understand that childbirth is dangerous, and that you have to trust your team. You have to trust your body. You have to trust your baby. Anticipate that like things can go perfectly or things can go completely awfully. So it's something that I wanted to make sure that I understood, and that I want to prepare myself mentally in case something does happen. I might have a bad experience, but I still want my birth experience to still be a good experience, if that makes sense. Like, I still want to come out of it positively, even if things like didn't happen like I wanted them to, or something bad happened. And I also think that this is like it's like a tag team. Like, it's not just me doing this; it's also the baby too. And so I'm gonna like encourage him to like, you can do this. Like, we're gonna both get through this together. And like, I don't know, I feel like I'm not alone because of the fact that we have to do this together. There he goes, my little Mexican jumping bean. So one of the biggest symptom I had this month was actually sciatic nerve pain. Now the problem with mine, normally what it is it's a pinched nerve in the back of your spine that shoots nerve pain directly down your legs. But my pain, it doesn't go down, it goes up. And I talked to my doctor about this, and he was like, well, I guess. He didn't really have an answer for me. But I wanted to make sure he knew. Because what it does is it starts like in the center of my back, and then it goes up towards the back of my chest, to like my rib cage, and then like sits there. And it normally doesn't last for more than like 30 seconds. But it's painful, and it's very uncomfortable, and it makes you feel nervous because you're like, what's wrong? But like I said, the doctor had he was like, no cause for alarm, I suppose. He's like, okay, I understand this happening. We'll monitor it if anything happens, or if anything gets worse, basically. And that's pretty much like the thing with me, with my doctor, is just communication. Like, I've got to communicate with him and make sure that he understands that I know these things, and that this is how I feel, and like this is what I want to do about it. And he's been very good about like making sure that he communicates back at me. Now, there is something I want to talk about, and that is translation. Like, I have two interpreters who speak Japanese, speak English, but I still feel like communication is still really difficult. I anticipate that the next time that, if I'm allowed to, if I can have another baby, that I pick a clinic that someone like straight up speaks just English, and not have to deal with this anymore. So because the doctor scheduled my induction date from my due date was the 20th of April, and he scheduled it for the 10th. We had to move a few of the appointments around, right? I had to get my Group B step test done before we had our appointment, where I had to get like my full term appointments, which is like post 37 weeks. So what we did was we had to like rush an appointment, and what happened was that the appointments weren't available, number one, because my clinic has been really busy recently. They're basically, I think, at full capacity for patients. So me trying to make an appointment for before full term was like almost impossible, just where the schedule was. And then what we ended up having to do was do it on a day that my female interpreter couldn't come. And I was like, that's fine, I have another interpreter. I can ask to see if he's available. I know it's short notice, but let's see what we can do. And even in that moment, she just wasn't listening to me. I think that there's just like a disconnect. Like, she's being very selfish. And like, she's allowed to be. I'm not paying her. She's doing this as a friend, as a favor for me. But at the same time, like, I'm depending on her to listen and communicate with me, and we're just like not being able to communicate all the time. She's like, well, you can't pick this date because I'm not going to be here. So I didn't say that I'm going to pick this date and have you here. I'm picking this date because it's available. I'm going to find some other way to get an interpretation. And she's like, I'm not going to be here that day. I'm like, I know that you're not going to be here. Like, you're not the only person that I depend on, But she was like trying to like rework the schedule, because we were working with one of the staff members to make sure we can get an appointment. And she kept saying like, well, I can't do this day. I was like, no, let's do this day because it's available, it's open, and I can find out someone else to do it. And she's like, well, I'm not here. It's like, yeah, I get it, you're not here. I know that you're not available. I'm not going to this appointment with you. She's just not listening to me, right? So we get to that specific appointment, and my male interpreter, I didn't really want him there in person in the first place, because I know how everyone acts around him, and also the way that the tests were. I didn't want like there's different methods of doing the specific Group B strep test, and I was a little embarrassed by like the thought of like someone being right next to the room or talking about the results or whatever. So I was like, I don't really want you here as a male. It just made me slightly uncomfortable, and nothing to do with him, just the fact that he was male. And he called me like 2 days before and was like, hey, my son has COVID, so we're on quarantine, and so I won't be able to come in person anyway. I was like, okay, that's fine. I didn't want you to come, but like also, take care of your kid, take care of yourself, right? So I come to the appointment, and the reception lady is like dragon lady. Like, she's being so mean. She's like, where's your interpreter? I'm like, I don't have an interpreter today. I'm using my phone. She's like, this is unacceptable. And what happened is I'm having it's the middle of spring. So I had to change my insurance information, and I was trying to like give her my new information, and she was just having a hard time because on it has a different prefecture and like a different like city and everything. She's like, well, this won't work anymore because it's, your Matafuku is tied to your old insurance card, which has already been expired. Like, you still have to use the coupons registered through the city that you registered, which is the city I'm in now. So she had questions about like, are you moving? We can't use all this stuff that we have set up for you already. And I'm like, no, I'm not moving, right? And that was basically the conversation that she wanted to have was, are you moving? And then the answer is no. Right? It's just a simple, but no, she wanted to fuss at me. And to the point where I told my interpreter that I would call him like right whenever I'm going in, but I called him early, was like, hey bro, she's like tripping, help me out, right? And we just basically did like clarification, because she just had all these assumptions that like, well, if your insurance says this, then you must be moving. No, I'm not. I'm still going to be living in my apartment. Like, there's a reason why we set up these things the way we did. And then she like wanted to tag along at the end of the conversation of make sure next time you have an interpreter in person. It was like, whatever. That day we had a consultation with a midwife, and she was a little nervous about English because I actually never worked with this midwife before. And she had like a little interpreter thing. I was like, you want me to just call my interpreter? I set up my schedule to come with an interpreter, but it's just on my phone, right? He's just gonna call in. And everyone had this assumption that like I didn't have that plan. That I just kind of like did this on a whim. Like they didn't trust me to like take care of the situation, which was kind of dumb, honestly. So we get to the point where, I have to sit down with the midwife, and we're going through all this paperwork about like what to expect on my induction, what time to come in, what to bring, who's gonna come, and like all the last minute paperwork and stuff like that, right? And so I, call my interpreter. I'm like, hey bro, we got one more thing to do, let's just go through it together. And we did. We went through all of it. And like she kept like she was doing things like for the induction date you have to bring, like she was like speaking so slowly and loudly to him. I'm like, the man understands Japanese, no problem, you don't have to treat him like this. So it was dumb. It was so dumb. This week, whenever I had my full term appointment where they go and monitor the baby's heart rate and movements for 30 minutes, they check my cervix, and then of course we did an ultrasound. So it was like a really busy appointment. And of course I had my my female interpreter because she was back from break, and like they basically just gave her all the information all over again. And I was like, this information is not for my benefit. This is her benefit. And like, I get it. She's my interpreter. She needs to understand what's going on. But I also feel like it's a little redundant. And I knew this by after the end of my appointment, the same midwife came back. It's like, yeah, we want to go do a consultation because last time it just was a little difficult and I couldn't communicate the things I wanted to. It's like, you did. And if you had a question about like if I understood it or not, you could have asked, and we did, and we clarified, and if I had questions, I asked my questions, you answered the questions, like there was no miscommunication. And so what happened was, my female interpreter and this midwife, they just started ignoring me, just straight up ignored me. And I'm sitting here like I'm the patient. Like, you guys should be asking questions to me or talking to me directly. And almost anytime I would pipe in to say a question or to say something, I was almost always talked over because they weren't listening for my English. So they're just talking to each other. I'm just like, okay, cool, that's whatever, but we're literally going the same information that I went last week with you, with my other interpreter. Why are we doing this? And she wrote out the same paperwork, and I was like I literally have the same paperwork that we went over last time, and has your notes on it. Now when it came to the point where I had questions and I was trying to ask questions about the in labor underwear, because they have specific underwear that's Velcro so they can get better access to you without having to take off your underwear or cut it. And I was like, I don't really want to use those. They're kind of expensive and they're for one use only. And I know that the hospital's going to give me 2 disposable underwear, but that's for after labor, right? And I can't tell you how many times I had to ask this question of, can I go, commando underneath my gown? And they're like, well, you're going to have 2 pieces of underwear. No, I'm not talking about after labor. I'm talking about during labor. And they're like, well, you don't have to, you'd have to use this specific underwear. And I was like, this kind of underwear? I don't want to use this underwear. Can I go without underwear? They're like, well, you're going to have to use underwear for after labor. I'm like, I'm not talking about after labor. There was just so much miscommunication. No one was listening to me. And it was so frustrating. And by the time I actually got the answer of oh, no, there's too much, bodily fluids to keep up with, that we wanted you to continue to wearing, some form of underwear. I was like, okay, so do I need to buy my own underwear? Or, like, you know, like, even by the point I got, like, you know, do I need to go buy a pair of these? They were just like, we're gonna just bring you some. And it's just like, like, you gave me more questions than answers because no one's listening to me anymore. My interpreter wasn't really, you know, working with me like I wanted her to. It was irritating. It was really irritating because even after the appointment, we had, like, right after I left the doctor, right? And we talk about all these things and these symptoms and stuff I have. And she was like, yeah, the doctor asked you if you had a headache. And I was like, it would have been nice to know if you told me then, whenever the man said it in the, during the actual appointment, because of the fact that, like, my blood pressure had been high and my weight gain had been up, that some of the other symptoms was like protein in your urine, headaches, and vision changes. And I had actually had vision changes and headaches. And if that was a form of diagnosis that the doctor would have given me, then it would have been nice to do, like, while we're actually in the appointment, instead of saying, hey, yeah, by the way, the doctor asked if you had a headache. Yes, I did. Like, this is really important information that needs to be communicated between me and the doctor, or me and the midwife, and, like, I don't know what's going on, where the breakdown is. I don't know if she's just getting overwhelmed, or if she's just not paying enough attention, or she doesn't really understand that certain things that sound simple aren't really. She's not even asking me for clarification. So I'm just, like, more nervous about the time whenever I'm going in, you know, in 3 days from now to deliver my baby. It's like, are you going to be, you know, are you going to be a good tool for me when I'm trying to communicate with these people? I know you're not going to be here for the entire time. You've already made that very obvious whenever they told you that for the 10th, they're going to insert the induction balloon thing. I have the title for you there. And then they'll use the drugs on the 11th, right? She's like, oh, well, I don't have to really be here, you know? It's like, this is what I didn't want to tell you, because then you're going to be behaving like this. So it's adding a lot of stress unnecessarily, and it's just kind of irritating, honestly. Like, I love my interpreter, she's a great friend, but, like, can I depend on you for this really important part of my life? So, like I said, probably next time I get pregnant, I'm just straight to freaking, like, English, we speak English, because of this exact reason. The last of last things I want to talk about, like, I don't know if you guys want to really, like, see all the stuff I've gotten. We did 2 baby showers. One that my mom hosted. She did a great job. Basically, everyone that said they would come came, unless they had, like, emergency, like, I had good work all of a sudden, which was fun. And then Alex's mom held an event at the church, so, like, that was really nice. And we've got pretty much all the items that we needed. I'm sitting here looking at the bassinet right now. The changing area is already set up, so we're all good to go. I've got a few of the baby clothes. My hospital bag is already packed. And, like, I think I'm ready, but I don't know if I'm ready yet. You know, we're at this point where, like, our life is literally about to change. And like, whenever you look at something, like, from this moment before, we act like this, and then after this point, we do something different. Like, every time you do something like that, you're setting yourself up to, like have this, like, nervous breakdown. I'm like, no, I think that our life is going to be very similar. We're just going to have more responsibility and, you know, not being able to make selfish decisions of, like, I want to go and buy a video game. I was like, well, you know, we got to get, you know, diapers, or, you know, we have to go and go to a doctor appointment with the baby, or things like that. So, like, it's like, just being a parent just means that you can no longer be selfish. You know, you can't be just the child that you take care of yourself, you know? So I think that the 3 of us are going to have a lot of fun. I'm still really excited to see my baby, and spend time with him and kiss on him and, like, you know, feed him and, like, watch him sleep. I'm trying to, like, think of all the positive things because I know I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be frustrated, nervous. So yeah. If there is a follow-up video, on month 9 or labor. I think it'll probably be just like an update video. I don't want to do like a film of like me in the hospital like delivering the baby. I'll probably do a few clips of just like me walking around my clinic, me like with the baby probably, the meal that they give you after you deliver the baby. It's like a congratulation or like a congratulatory or like a celebratory meal. So I might like film that. If I'm like not too exhausted, it should be easy enough to like, just do a quick update. I assume no more than like a 15-minute video of some sort. Just trying to keep it short because I'm not going to have much time, honestly. I hope that I covered everything I needed to cover for this video and that you guys felt that like you learned and like took away from this entire experience with me of just this video blog. It's been crazy being pregnant. And so I wanted to share it with you guys, and I hope that you really do appreciate that I did share it with you. Alright. I hope to see you lovelies for the update, and wish me luck.